Today, Ukraine launched coordinated air and sea drone attacks on the Russian port city of Novorossiysk. In a separate attack, Ukrainian forces hit the Salavat petrochemical complex, one of Russia's largest, located 1,400 kilometers from Ukraine. The port infrastructure and ships were not damaged. However, other footage shows damage to the Novorossiysk hotel and at least 5 nearby buildings in the city center. In a separate attack, Ukrainian forces struck the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat oil refinery. Today, Ukraine carried out an air and seaborne drone attack on Novorossiysk. The attack at sea was visible to residents and captured on video, with the footage recently appearing on social media. According to reports from Russia's Rosmoport,
hundreds of drones were launched over Kharkov in under 15 minutes. 72 civilians dead. Markets in flames, whole blocks collapsed. That was the terror. But what followed flipped the script of warfare itself.
Today is day 1309 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We began with Russian attacks across Ukraine in the past 24 hours, which killed at least 9 civilians and wounded at least 50 others. In the Donetsk region, Russian forces shelled local areas at least 24 times over the past day, killing 3 people and wounding 8 others. Many residential buildings, shops, and vehicles were also severely damaged. Russian forces launched 152 drones, with Ukraine's Air Force intercepting 126 of the incoming UAVs. The remaining drones and falling wreckage struck 9 locations.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Approximately 1,400 kilometers from Ukrainian territory, according to a report from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The refinery processes up to 10 million tons of crude oil annually and is a key producer of liquid rocket fuel in Russia. In his speech at the United Nations, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that the world is experiencing the most destructive arms race in human history. He urged world powers to help stop Russia's war in Ukraine, saying the conflict is fueling this dangerous escalation. Ongoing Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil refineries have caused Russian diesel exports to fall to levels not seen since 2020, according to a Financial Times report published on Tuesday.
Ukraine answered with a swarm of 700 home-built drones, the largest drone counterattack in modern conflict. What happens when cheap plastic frames and commercial chips overwhelm billion-dollar defenses? This video unpacks how Russia's safe zones vanished overnight and why military planners now compare drone swarms to the nuclear age. Russia thought its skies were defended, but the night hundreds of low-cost drones tore into Belgorod proved otherwise. Searchlights cut the air, tracer fire scattered upward, yet the swarm kept coming. What unfolded was not a warning shot. It was a surgical blow against the heart of Russia's supply lines. The lead-up began with a barrage against Kharkov.
We are now living through the most destructive arms race in human history, because this time includes artificial intelligence. And if there are no real security, stopping Russia now is cheaper than wondering who will be the first to create a simple drone carrying a nuclear, except friends and weapons. And if the world can't respond even to old threats, and if there is no strong platform for international security, will there be any place left on Earth that's still safe for people?
Hundreds of rockets, missile impacts striking in strings across apartment blocks and power stations. Sirens drowned under rolling detonations. The intent was clear, not tactical precision, but terror. A message carved in fire. Civilians buried in rubble, entire neighborhoods blacked out. The strike was designed to shred morale, to force Kiev to consider the cost of further resistance. For commanders on the ground, the test was brutal. Respond in kind with heavy artillery, and the war of attrition would drag on. Attempt a conventional counter-barrage, and it would fall short against layered Russian defenses. Each traditional path equaled exhaustion and defeat. The only alternative lay in a wager on something unproven. A weapon system not yet tested on this scale. That gamble was the drone swarm. Units built for under $10,000 apiece, assembled in hidden workshops with 3D printed frames and boards you could order online. No classified alloys. No factory assembly lines. Just engineers cannibalizing consumer parts into strike assets. And here was the paradox. Crude in appearance, yet sophisticated in design choice. Each piece cheap enough to lose, but together able to stretch defenses thin. The plan was laid out in 3 waves. The first wave carried jammers, devices built to scramble the spectrum, throwing static into the receivers that tracked incoming threats. The second consisted of sacrificial drones, fast, low-flying units meant to trigger radars, soak up surface-to-air missiles, and goad crews into unleashing fire. Then came the strike units, the third wave, loaded with explosives and guided by pre-programmed GPS courses toward fuel tanks, ammo warehouses, and logistics yards. It mirrored a theory of combat called saturation warfare. In simulations conducted for decades, strategists debated what would happen if cheap expendable machines clogged air defense networks. That night, the simulation became reality. Radar screens that once glowed with precise tracks turned into storms of icons, each one competing for attention. Operators struggled to distinguish target from decoy. Warning tones collided. Gun crews fired blind, arcs of machine gun tracers forming hopeless grids across the sky. In the chaos, discipline slipped. Batteries wasted interceptors on shadows. Crews panicked as their own positions lit up to drones circling low. Then the impact points began to erupt. More than 150 drones pushed through the gauntlet. First detonations set off propellant stores. Secondary flashes rolled across stacked ammunition trucks. A single depot fire spread into a chain of eruptions, fuel lines, stored shells, unguided rockets, igniting one after another. The night turned into a row of fireballs, shockwaves thrown across the steppe. The whispered phrase before the launch had been simple. If even half get through, they did. And what followed erased half a year of frontline stockpiles in minutes. Thousands of shells, rockets, and aviation stores gone, not destroyed on the battlefield but wiped out behind the lines with machines built from plastic mounts and hobbyist electronics. This was the first real-world moment when basic components neutralized assets worth billions. No stealth bomber. No 5th-generation fighter. Instead, skeletal frames costing less than an armored car tire achieved what advanced squadrons could not. Power based on mass, not individual might. A strike that revealed the imbalance between cost and effect. For Ukraine, it was not just a tactical victory. It altered the equation of the war. For Russia, it exposed the fragility of systems long assumed untouchable. And for external observers, it sent a chill. Western analysts began to debate the scale of the shift. Some compared it not just to a new weapon but to the dawn of an entirely new strategic age. A moment disruptive enough to draw parallels with the first nuclear tests. The battlefield had been redrawn, not by tank columns or fighter jets, but by swarms of cheap machines launched in the dark. The Belgorod strike showed how fragile modern defenses can be. In minutes, cheap swarms peeled apart layers of fortifications that were designed to hold for months. Plastic shells and low-grade chips stripped away the illusion of invulnerability. What once seemed secure became exposed, and the balance of war shifted in real time. The question now is not what happened, but what comes next. Do we see larger swarms, cyber-linked attacks, or a desperate pivot toward nuclear threats? What would you do? Comment your choice below. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict.